Chosen one, why does your heart race when Wednesday approaches? Why does something deep in your spirit whisper danger when you think about that phone call you're planning to make? Why do you feel like you're standing at the edge of a cliff you can't see? If you're watching this message right now, it's not because the algorithm chose you. It's because heaven intercepted your scroll at this exact moment. And what I'm about to tell you about this Wednesday will either save your destiny or you'll ignore it and spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. This Wednesday isn't just another day on your calendar. It's a spiritual trapdoor. One wrong conversation, one misplaced confidence, one moment of speaking when you should have stayed silent, and everything God has been building in your life for months could unravel in a single sentence. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange electricity in the air, that sense that something monumental is shifting, that restless knowing that you're standing on the precipice of either breakthrough or breakdown. Your spirit isn't lying to you. Wednesday is a narrow bridge spanning a canyon so deep that most people never recover from falling into it. Here's the shocking truth they don't want you to know. The people closest to you, your family, your dearest friends, the ones who know you best, they will become spiritual saboteurs this Wednesday without even realizing it. Not because they're evil, but because their words will carry a frequency that can shatter what heaven is crystallizing in your life. You see, silence isn't just golden this Wednesday, it's survival, because every chosen one who has ever missed their divine appointment did so with their mouth wide open, spilling their sacred secrets to the wrong ears at the precisely wrong moment. Before we go deeper into this mystery, and I promise you, by the time we're done, you'll understand why silence this Wednesday could change the rest of your life. Let me pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. If your spirit feels a nudge already, if something inside you is trembling with recognition, type, "I'm listening" in the comments so I know you're with me. Because what comes next will require every ounce of your spiritual courage. The cosmic alignment happening this Wednesday has only occurred 3 times in the last century. And each time, it separated the chosen from the comfortable, the awakened from the asleep, the obedient from the ordinary. The question is, will you be ready for what's coming? Or will you talk your way out of your miracle? Have you ever noticed how the air feels different before a tornado hits? How animals sense earthquakes hours before the ground starts shaking? How your grandmother could predict rain just by the way her bones ached? What if I told you that this Wednesday, the spiritual atmosphere around your life will be more charged than anything you've experienced in decades? Dear chosen one, you're about to walk into a day that looks absolutely ordinary on the surface. The sun will rise at the same time, your coffee will taste the same, the news will drone on with the same headlines. But in the unseen realm, in that invisible dimension where angels war and destinies are decided, this Wednesday will be anything but normal. Picture this. Heaven's gates will be flung wide open, not with the gentle creak of morning doors, but with the thunderous power of celestial floodgates. Every word you speak will be amplified tenfold in the spiritual realm. Every conversation will carry the weight of prophecy. Every casual comment will plant seeds that could grow into either blessing or curse with supernatural speed. James 3-6 warns us with terrifying clarity, "The tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. It defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell." But here's what most people miss. James wasn't just giving general advice. He was describing days exactly like this, Wednesday, when the spiritual atmosphere becomes so charged that words don't just influence, they create reality. You see, beloved, there are certain days when heaven positions itself differently over the earth. Days when the veil between the natural and supernatural becomes paper thin. Wednesday is one of those days, and if you're not prepared, if you walk into it talking carelessly like it's any other day, you could speak yourself right out of the breakthrough God has been orchestrating for months. Think about Nehemiah. When God stirred his heart to rebuild Jerusalem's walls, what was the first thing he did? Did he call a town hall meeting? Did he share his vision with his closest friends? Did he seek advice from his family? Absolutely not. Nehemiah 2:12 tells us, "I arose in the night, I and some few men with me. Neither told I any man what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem." Nehemiah understood something that saved his entire mission. There are seasons when silence is the difference between success and sabotage. When keeping your mouth shut is the difference between stepping into your calling and watching it crumble before your eyes. But why is this principle so crucial this Wednesday? Because Wednesday sits in the middle of the week like a spiritual crossroads. It's not the fresh beginning of Monday or the anticipated relief of Friday. Wednesday is the hinge point, the day when this week's momentum either builds toward breakthrough or collapses into confusion. And here's where it gets frightening. The people closest to you will become unwitting weapons against your destiny this Wednesday. Not because they're evil, but because their words will carry a frequency that can shatter what heaven is crystallizing in your spirit. Your spouse who just wants to help will plant seeds of doubt with their well-meaning advice. Your best friend who cares about you will water those seeds with their fearful observations. Your children who know you best will fertilize that doubt with their logical concerns. Before you know it, what God whispered to you in the secret place, that vision, that calling, that impossible dream He's been nurturing in your heart, will be choked out by the weeds of other people's limitations masquerading as love. This is exactly what happened to the 10 spies who went to scout the Promised Land. Numbers 13:32 records their fatal mistake. "And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched." One conversation, one shared opinion, one moment of speaking fear instead of faith, and an entire generation died in the wilderness. You think that's harsh? You think God overreacted? Listen carefully. It wasn't the giants in the land that killed them. It was the giants in their words. It wasn't the fortified cities that defeated them. It was the fortified fear they built with their own tongues. This Wednesday, you're standing at your own Jordan River. You're facing your own promised land. And the enemy knows that if he can get you to open your mouth to the wrong people at the wrong time, he can turn your testimony into a tomb, your vision into a funeral, your breakthrough into a breakdown. Words this Wednesday won't just be communication, they'll be incantations. Seeds planted in storm season. Some will grow instantly into towering problems you never intended to create. Some will blow away, carrying your dreams with them. And some will invite weeds that will strangle the very purpose God planted in your soul. You're probably wondering, but why Wednesday specifically? What makes this particular day so dangerous? That's no coincidence, chosen one. There's a reason Wednesday has been marked in heaven's calendar as your day of decision. There's a spiritual pattern hidden in the very name of this day that will shock you when you understand it. And in just a moment, I'm going to reveal exactly why Wednesday could either become your greatest victory or your most devastating defeat, depending on whether you guard your tongue or let it run wild. But first, you need to understand what's really at stake here, because this isn't just about keeping quiet for one day. This is about whether you'll step into the destiny God has been preparing for you or talk yourself out of it forever. Dear chosen one, what I'm about to reveal will shake you to your very core. There is a war being fought over your words this Wednesday. Not a war you can see with your eyes, but a spiritual battle so fierce that hell itself has mobilized its forces to steal what heaven is about to give you. The Apostle Paul warned us in Ephesians 6:12 that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world. But here's what most believers miss: this war isn't fought with swords or guns. It's fought with words. Your words. And this Wednesday, every syllable you speak becomes either a weapon for heaven or ammunition for hell. You see, when you open your mouth, you don't just release sound waves, you open portals, spiritual gateways that either invite God's presence or give the enemy legal access to your life. Every conversation is a cosmic transaction. Every word is a spiritual deed. And on Wednesday, those deeds will be written in permanent ink. How many times have you wished you could take back something you said in the heat of the moment? How many nights have you laid awake replaying a conversation, knowing you revealed too much to the wrong person? How many relationships have been destroyed by words that escaped your lips before wisdom could catch them? That regret you feel, that's your spirit, recognizing that you just handed the enemy a key to areas of your life that were supposed to remain locked. Let me tell you about Samson, the strongest man who ever lived, anointed by God from birth, destined to deliver an entire nation. But he had one fatal flaw: he couldn't keep his mouth shut when his heart was involved. When Delilah pressed him, when she used intimacy as a weapon, when she whispered sweet manipulation in his ear, Samson did what countless chosen ones have done throughout history. He talked. "If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man." 7 words. That's all it took. 7 words spoken to the wrong person at the wrong time, and the strongest man on earth became weaker than a child. But here's the part that will terrify you. Samson thought he was safe because Delilah was close to him. She was his lover, his confidant, someone he trusted with his deepest secrets. The enemy didn't use a stranger to destroy Samson. He used someone who had access to his heart. Are you starting to see the pattern? This Wednesday, the people closest to you will become unknowing agents of spiritual warfare, not because they want to harm you, but because intimacy creates access, and access creates vulnerability. That sister who always calls you for advice, that friend who knows all your struggles, that spouse who finishes your sentences. On Wednesday, their words won't just be conversation, they'll be spiritual programming, rewiring your faith, redirecting your destiny. The enemy has been studying you for months. He knows exactly which buttons to push, which wounds to poke, which doubts to amplify, and he's going to use the voices you trust most to deliver his poison. A casual comment about your age, a gentle suggestion that maybe you're being too spiritual, a loving concern that your dreams might be unrealistic. These words will feel like care, but they're actually curses disguised as concern. Here's what the devil knows that you're just now learning. Your breakthrough is scheduled for this Wednesday. God has been orchestrating circumstances, aligning people, opening doors that have been sealed for decades. But breakthrough requires faith, and faith requires focus, and focus requires silence from the voices that would drown out heaven's whisper. Every chosen one who has ever missed their miracle did so because they let someone else's words become louder than God's voice. Moses almost talked himself out of Egypt because he focused on his speech impediment instead of God's calling. Gideon nearly forfeited victory because he listened to fear instead of faith. Peter walked on water until he started listening to the storm instead of the Savior. This Wednesday, you will face the same choice. Will you guard your ears like you guard your life? Or will you let familiarity breed vulnerability? The clock is ticking. The enemy's strategy is already in motion. Even now, someone close to you is unknowingly preparing words that could shipwreck your faith if you're not ready. That urgent phone call that's coming, that impromptu visit, that heart-to-heart conversation that feels so natural, so needed, so innocent. It's a trap, and the only way to escape it is to do what seems impossible to your human heart. You must choose God's voice over theirs. You must value heaven's plan more than their opinion. You must protect your assignment more than their feelings. If you're starting to see how this connects to your own life, share this video right now. Someone else you know may need this warning before Wednesday arrives. Don't let them walk into this spiritual ambush blind. But knowing about the war is only half the battle. The real question is, how do you protect yourself when the people you love most become unwitting weapons pointed at your destiny? Listen to me, chosen one. The knife that cuts deepest doesn't come from a stranger's hand. It comes wrapped in love, delivered with a smile, spoken by the very people who would take a bullet for you. And this Wednesday, your greatest spiritual test won't arrive wearing the mask of an enemy. It will come dressed as concern from your dearest friend. It will sound like wisdom from your most trusted family member. It will feel like protection from someone who genuinely loves you. This is the cruelest irony of the spiritual journey. Those who know you best often become the unwitting saboteurs of your destiny, not because they want to harm you, but because they carry their own fears, their own limitations, their own spiritual baggage. And on Wednesday, all of that gets amplified and projected onto your sacred space. Think about it. When was the last time you shared something deeply spiritual with someone you loved? Maybe it was a vision God gave you. Maybe it was a calling you felt stirring in your heart. Maybe it was simply a new understanding of Scripture that set your soul on fire. You opened your heart. You shared your treasure. And within minutes you felt the doubt creeping in. Not because of what they said, but because of how they said it. The subtle raise of an eyebrow. The gentle but dismissive. Well, just be careful. The loving but faithless. Are you sure about that? Jesus himself knew this pain. In Mark 6-4, he declared, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his own town, among his relatives, and in his own home." Even the Son of God couldn't perform mighty miracles in his hometown because of their unbelief. If Jesus faced this barrier with his own family, what makes you think you're immune? Your mother who prayed over you as a child, she still sees the version of you she's comfortable with. Your best friend who's walked with you for 20 years, they've invested in keeping you at a certain level because your growth makes them question their own stagnation. Your spouse who loves you deeply, they might unconsciously resist your spiritual elevation because it threatens the familiar dynamics of your relationship. Here's what breaks my heart, dear one. These people aren't villains. They're prisoners of their own fear, and fear has a voice. On Wednesday, that voice will speak through them with surgical precision, targeting the exact doubts you've been fighting in private. They'll say things like, "Don't you think you're being a little extreme?" Or, "Remember what happened the last time you got this excited about something spiritual?" Or, "I just don't want to see you get hurt again." Every word will be wrapped in love. Every concern will be seasoned with genuine care. But beneath the surface, you'll feel your faith wavering, your confidence cracking, your divine vision growing dim. Because the people we love have access to our hearts in ways that strangers never could. They know where we're vulnerable. They remember our past failures. And in their desire to protect us from pain, they often protect us from purpose. But here's the shocking truth that will set you free. Their lack of faith is not evidence of your lack of calling. Their inability to see your vision is not proof that your vision is false. Their comfortable Christianity does not diminish your radical faith. Scripture tells us in 1 Corinthians 1:27, God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. What looks foolish to your family might be exactly what God is calling you to embrace. What seems impossible to your friends might be the very miracle God wants to perform through you. This Wednesday, when Mercury aligns with the spiritual frequencies that only occur once every 33 years, your loved ones will become unconscious channels for every doubt, every fear, every limitation that has ever tried to cage your spirit. They won't mean to do it. They won't even realize they're doing it. But their words will carry a weight that could crush what God has been carefully building in your heart. That conversation with your sister, who always keeps it real, she'll find a way to bring up every time you've been disappointed before. That phone call from your childhood friend, who just wants to catch up somehow, it will turn into a reminder of why you should play it safe. That dinner with family members who love you dearly, the topic will shift to all the reasons why people like you shouldn't dream so big. And if you engage, if you try to defend your calling, if you attempt to convince them of what God has shown you, you'll walk away feeling spiritually depleted. You'll question what you know to be true. You'll second-guess the very voice that has been guiding you toward your destiny. But what if I told you there's another way? What if Wednesday's silence becomes your sanctuary? What if protecting your vision from well-meaning loved ones becomes the very act that preserves your miracle? You see, chosen one, some treasures are too sacred to share before their appointed time. Some revelations are too fragile to expose to the skepticism of others, even those who love us. Some callings require a period of silent incubation before they're strong enough to survive the questions of a doubting world. And that's exactly why this silence will be your shield. But here's the surprising part: your silence won't just protect you, it will prepare you for something even your loving family members could never imagine. The question that will determine your destiny is this: will you honor God's voice above human voices, even when those human voices belong to the people you love most? Here's what heaven doesn't want the enemy to know, and why this Wednesday carries the weight of eternity itself. You see, chosen one, Wednesday, isn't just the middle of the week, it's the biblical day of separation. In Genesis, God separated the waters above from the waters below on the third day, light from darkness, heaven from earth. And this Wednesday, He's about to separate you from everything that's been holding you back. But here's the part that will shake you to your core. Wednesday in Hebrew is Yom Revi'i, the day of division. Every major biblical breakthrough happened when someone chose silence over speech, at the exact moment when speaking felt most natural. Think about Esther. For 3 days and 3 nights, she fasted in silence before approaching the king. 3 days. The fate of an entire nation hung in the balance. And what did she do? She guarded her words like they were made of pure gold. Because she understood something most people never learn. Timing isn't just about when you act, it's about when you refrain from acting. Daniel understood this mystery. When King Nebuchadnezzar demanded answers, Daniel didn't rush to speak. He went into his chamber, closed his mouth to men, and opened his heart to God. And what happened? The very secrets of kingdoms were revealed to him in the silence. But here's where it gets personal for you, dear one. This Wednesday, the moon enters its third quarter, the biblical phase of testing. Scripture tells us in Ecclesiastes 3-7, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Wednesday is your time to keep silence. You'll wake up that morning and feel it immediately. The air will feel thick, almost electric. Your chest might feel tight, not from anxiety, but from the weight of spiritual significance pressing down on your life. Even your coffee will taste different. Even the light coming through your windows will carry a frequency that doesn't belong to ordinary days. And that's when they'll come for you. Your sister will call with that urgent family drama that's been brewing for weeks. Your best friend will text, needing to process their latest relationship crisis. Your neighbor will knock on your door with a problem that somehow becomes your emergency. One by one, they'll approach, not knowing they're being used as spiritual interference. Because here's what most people don't understand about divine appointments. The enemy doesn't attack you directly on breakthrough days. He sends your loved ones to unknowingly sabotage what heaven is trying to birth in your life. Remember when Jesus was about to begin his ministry? Who tempted him in the wilderness? Not strangers. The tempter came offering logical solutions, reasonable alternatives, perfectly timed distractions. And what did Jesus do? He spoke only Scripture, and only when absolutely necessary. This Wednesday, you're entering your wilderness moment. Not a place of punishment, but a place of promotion. And the test isn't whether you can endure hardship, it's whether you can endure the urge to explain yourself to people who wouldn't understand your calling, even if you drew them a map. Here's the shock that most believers never discover. Your breakthrough has been delayed not by the devil's attacks, but by your own mouth. Every time you've shared your dreams too early, explained your decisions too thoroughly, or sought validation from people who live in yesterday's mindset, you've leaked the very energy you needed to birth your tomorrow. But Wednesday is different. Wednesday is your reset button. The moon in its third quarter creates what ancient prophets called the silence of heaven, a spiritual vacuum that draws divine secrets toward those wise enough to stop talking and start receiving. It's the same frequency that surrounded Moses on Mount Sinai, Elijah in the cave, and John on the island of Patmos. You want to know why you felt so restless lately? Why sleep has been elusive and dreams have been vivid? Your spirit has been preparing for this moment. Your soul has been tuning itself to receive what can only be transmitted in the absence of human noise. This isn't superstition, chosen one. This is strategy, divine strategy. When Joshua marched around Jericho, God didn't just tell him to walk. He commanded total silence for 6 days. 6 days. Can you imagine the discipline it took for an entire army to march in complete silence while their enemies mocked them from the walls? But on the 7th day, when they finally opened their mouths, their shout didn't just echo, it demolished walls that had stood for centuries. Your Wednesday is day 6. Your silence is preparation for a shout that will shake the foundations of everything that's been blocking your destiny. But here's the warning that could save your life. If you speak when heaven says be silent, you'll spend the next 6 months wondering why doors that were opening suddenly slammed shut. Why opportunities that seemed certain suddenly evaporated. Why relationships that were healing suddenly fractured beyond repair. The people closest to you don't know they're carrying spiritual interference. They're not your enemies, they're unknowing agents of delay. And this Wednesday, their words will carry 10 times the normal weight. One casual comment about your unrealistic dreams could plant seeds of doubt that take months to uproot. One well-meaning suggestion to be practical could redirect your path away from the miraculous. Write this down right now. Wednesday. No unnecessary conversations, no spiritual leakage. Guard your words like they're gold, because on this day, they are. Your silence isn't antisocial, it's prophetic. You're not avoiding people, you're protecting the miracle that's trying to be born through you. But the question that will determine your destiny is this. When Wednesday morning comes and your phone starts ringing, when people start needing your advice, when loved ones start pulling at your attention, will you remember that some moments are too sacred to share? Dear chosen one, let me tell you something that will shake the very foundation of how you see communication. You think silence is emptiness, don't you? You think it's the absence of something important. But what if I told you that silence is the most powerful spiritual weapon God ever placed in human hands? Look at Jesus standing before Pilate, the most crucial moment in human history, the fate of eternity hanging in the balance. And what did the Son of God do? He opened his mouth and defended himself with eloquent arguments. Matthew 27-14 tells us, "But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor." The governor was amazed, not because Jesus couldn't speak, but because he chose not to. In that moment of divine silence, Jesus wielded more power than all the armies of Rome. His silence wasn't weakness, it was warfare. It wasn't surrender, it was strategy. It wasn't defeat, it was dominion. You see, beloved, there are moments when words become weapons against your own destiny, when your voice becomes the very instrument the enemy uses to derail what God is orchestrating. This Wednesday is one of those moments. But why? Why does silence hold such supernatural power? Think about Elijah. This mighty prophet had just called down fire from heaven, defeated 450 prophets of Baal, and witnessed the most spectacular display of God's power in generations. But when he needed to hear from God again, where did he find him? 1 Kings 19:12 gives us the answer. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper, not in the wind that tore the mountains apart, not in the earthquake that shook the ground, not in the fire that consumed everything in its path. God spoke in the whisper. But here's what most people miss. Elijah could only hear that whisper because he had learned to be silent. How many divine whispers have you missed because your mouth was too busy? How many heaven-sent revelations passed you by because you were explaining instead of listening? How many miracles died in your throat because you spoke when you should have stayed still? This Wednesday, God is preparing to whisper something that will change the trajectory of your entire life. But he can't compete with the noise. He won't shout over your conversations. He won't force his way through your explanations. He waits for the silence. He honors the stillness. He rewards the restraint. Picture a lake on a perfectly calm morning. The water is so still it becomes a mirror, reflecting the sky with perfect clarity. You can see every cloud, every bird, every ray of sunlight dancing on the surface. But throw just one stone into that water, and what happens? The reflection shatters, the image fragments. The clarity disappears into ripples that spread until the entire surface is disturbed. Your soul is that lake, chosen one, and your words are the stones. This Wednesday, God wants to show you a reflection of your future so clear, so detailed, so breathtaking that it will take your breath away. But one conversation, one phone call, one moment of breaking silence, and that divine reflection shatters into 1,000 pieces. You're probably thinking, but how do I stay silent without hurting the people I love? How do I avoid conversations without seeming cold or distant? Listen carefully. You don't need to become a hermit. You don't need to be rude. You simply need to master the art of graceful deflection. When someone calls, when someone wants to share their drama, when someone seeks your advice, you have a simple response. I'll share more tomorrow. That's it. No long explanations, no apologies, no detailed justifications. Just a gentle promise to reconnect when the spiritual atmosphere has shifted. Most people will respect this. And the ones who don't, they're exactly the voices you need to avoid this Wednesday. But here's where it gets powerful. When you pass this test of silence, when you resist the urge to speak, to explain, to share, to respond, you'll notice something strange happen within 48 hours. Opportunities will begin to align. Doors that were closed will crack open. People who had ignored you will suddenly reach out. Solutions to problems you've been carrying for months will present themselves without you having to ask. It's as if the universe itself begins to conspire in your favor. Why? Because silence creates a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. When you stop filling the space with your words, with your worry, with your explanations, that space gets filled with something else, divine intervention. God moves into the silence you create. Heaven fills the void your restraint provides. Think about this. Every great breakthrough in Scripture happened after a period of silence. Moses spent 40 days in silence on Mount Sinai before receiving the 10 Commandments. Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness, speaking only to rebuke the devil before launching his ministry. Paul spent 3 years in the Arabian desert in relative silence before becoming the greatest apostle. The pattern is undeniable. Silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's not isolation, it's incubation. It's not emptiness, it's expectancy. But Wednesday's silence isn't just about receiving, it's about protecting. You see, you carry something precious inside you right now. A vision, a calling, a promise God whispered to you in your secret place. And like any precious thing, it needs protection. It needs to be guarded. It needs to be kept safe from those who would diminish it, doubt it, or destroy it with their well-meaning words. When you speak your dreams to the wrong people, you don't just lose privacy, you lose power. When you share your vision with those who can't see it, you don't just face rejection, you face spiritual interference. When you open your mouth at the wrong time, you don't just break silence, you break spiritual laws that govern how miracles are born. So the question becomes, are you strong enough to stay silent when everyone else is speaking? Are you disciplined enough to guard your tongue when the urge to share becomes overwhelming? Are you wise enough to recognize that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing? Because what happens next, what unfolds after you master the discipline of Wednesday's silence, will prove that God's ways are not our ways, and His thoughts are not our thoughts. In the stillness you create, miracles are conceived. Now listen to me carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to reveal will either confirm your obedience or convict your rebellion. The next 48 hours after Wednesday will not be ordinary. They will be revelatory. They will be your spiritual report card, written not in grades, but in the sudden clarity that floods your soul like morning light breaking through storm clouds. If you obeyed heaven's command and held your silence, something extraordinary is about to unfold in your life. You see, when you refuse to scatter your words like seeds in barren ground, when you keep your mouth shut, when every fiber of your being wants to speak, you create what the ancient prophets called the vacuum of blessing. Nature abhors a vacuum, beloved, and so does the supernatural realm. The space you created by your silence will be filled, but not with emptiness. It will be filled with divine downloads, prophetic insights, and miraculous alignments that would have been impossible if you had opened your mouth. But here's where it gets shocking. In the first 24 hours after your Wednesday silence, you're going to witness something that will make your hair stand on end. The very people you wanted to confide in, the ones you almost called, the family members whose opinions you nearly sought, they're going to reveal themselves. Not through some dramatic confrontation, but through the subtle unveiling of their true spiritual condition. That sister, who always seems so supportive, you'll overhear her gossiping about someone else's struggles, and you'll realize with crystal clarity that your sacred secrets would have become her next conversation piece. That friend who always wants to help. You'll watch them betray someone's confidence with casual cruelty, and your spirit will tremble knowing how close you came to spiritual disaster. This isn't coincidence, dear one. This is divine protection being revealed in real time. Psalm 91:3 promises, "Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare." But most people never see the snare because they walked right into it with their mouth wide open. You, however, will see it clearly because your silence gave you spiritual sight. The second wave of revelation comes around hour 36. This is when the supernatural downloads begin. You'll be sitting in your kitchen, drinking your morning coffee, and suddenly you'll know things. Not think things, not hope for things. You'll know things. That business decision you've been wrestling with for months, the answer will drop into your spirit like a stone into still water, creating ripples of absolute certainty. That relationship you've been questioning, the truth will surface without you having to dig for it. Isaiah 30:21 declares, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" But here's what most believers miss: that voice can only be heard by those who have learned to be quiet enough to receive it. Your Wednesday silence wasn't just obedience, it was spiritual preparation for supernatural communication. But what about those who ignored this warning? What about the chosen ones who couldn't resist the urge to share, to seek validation, to spill their spiritual secrets to the wrong ears? Their 48-hour aftermath will tell a different story entirely. They'll experience what the Bible calls the scattering. Their plans will suddenly feel confused. Their peace will evaporate like morning dew. The clarity they thought they had will fragment into 1,000 doubts and second guesses. They'll find themselves having the same conversations over and over again, trying to explain away the uneasiness in their spirit. They'll make phone calls that leave them feeling more confused than before. They'll seek counsel from people who muddy the waters instead of clearing them. And deep down, in the place where truth lives, they'll know they missed something important. They'll know they talked when they should have listened, shared when they should have protected, opened when they should have sealed. Here's the truth that will either comfort you or convict you. God is not playing games with your destiny. When he gives you specific instructions like maintaining silence on a spiritually charged day, it's not a suggestion. It's a divine strategy designed to position you for breakthrough while protecting you from breakdown. For those who obeyed, the 48-hour mark brings what I call the settling. Your nervous system will literally calm down. That anxiety you've been carrying about your future, it lifts like fog in sunlight. Those relationships that have been draining your energy, you'll suddenly see them with surgical clarity, knowing exactly what needs to change. That calling you've been afraid to pursue, the fear dissolves, replaced by holy boldness that seems to rise from your very bones. You'll feel lighter, clearer, as if your prayers suddenly have no static. The line between you and heaven becomes so clear that you'll wonder why you ever doubted God's ability to guide you. This isn't emotional manipulation, beloved. This is the natural result of spiritual obedience. When you align with heaven's timing, heaven aligns with your needs. But here's your assignment for the next 48 hours. Pay attention. Document what you see. Notice who reveals their true nature. Notice what clarity comes without you forcing it. Notice how your spirit responds to different people and situations. This isn't passive observation, this is active spiritual intelligence gathering. Mark your calendar right now. Set a reminder for Thursday evening. Write down everything you experienced after your Wednesday silence. Every revelation, every confirmation, every moment of supernatural clarity. Because your testimony isn't just for you, it's for the next chosen one who needs to know that obedience to God's voice brings tangible, measurable results. And here's why this matters more than you realize. We're living in the last days, when the ability to hear God's voice clearly will mean the difference between spiritual life and spiritual death. Your Wednesday silence wasn't just about that one day. It was training for the greater silences to come, the moments when the world is screaming but heaven is whispering, and only those who have learned to be still will hear the instructions that save their lives. So tell me, dear one, when Thursday night arrives and you're looking back on these 48 hours, what story will your life be telling? When the last word of Wednesday falls silent, heaven does not go quiet. It leans in closer. Can you feel it right now? That shift in the atmosphere around you, that subtle change in the spiritual pressure. As midnight approached and Wednesday slipped into yesterday, something profound happened in the unseen realm. Angels who had been standing guard over your silence suddenly moved into new positions. Assignment scrolls that had been sealed were cracked open, and your name, yes, your name was whispered in the throne room of the Almighty. Dear chosen one, if you kept the silence, if you guarded your words, as I warned you to do, your spirit knows something extraordinary just occurred. You might feel it as a lump rising in your throat, or perhaps as a strange peace settling over your chest like warm honey. Some of you might even feel a sudden unease, not fear, but the trembling that comes when you realize you're standing at the edge of destiny itself. This is the moment Ecclesiastes 3-7 spoke of when it declared there is a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Wednesday was your time to keep silence, but now the clock has struck a new hour, and heaven is asking you a question that will determine everything that follows. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because from this moment forward, the next 72 hours will either confirm your breakthrough or reroute your destiny entirely. And it starts right now. You see, biblical silence was never passive. When Jesus stood before Pilate in Matthew 27-14, his silence wasn't weakness, it was warfare. When he answered him, never a word, he was protecting something sacred, something that words would have contaminated. That's exactly what you've been doing. You've been protecting the miracle that God has been assembling in the spiritual realm while you kept your mouth closed. But here's what most people don't understand about divine silence. It doesn't end with quietness. It ends with power. It ends with authority. It ends with words that carry the weight of eternity because they've been forged in the furnace of restraint. Think about Moses when he came down from Mount Sinai. Exodus 34-29 tells us his face shone so brightly that the children of Israel couldn't even look at him. But that radiance didn't come from talking to God. It came from listening. It came from 40 days of receiving heaven's frequency without interference. And when Moses finally opened his mouth, the words that came out weren't just speech, they were commandments that shaped a nation. That's you right now, beloved. You've been on your own mountain of silence, and you're about to come down with something that will make people stop and stare. But I need to warn you about what happens next, because the enemy knows what you've just accomplished. He knows that a chosen one who has learned the power of silence is the most dangerous force on earth, and he's about to launch his counterattack in ways you won't see coming. In the next 72 hours, 3 specific tests will come for you. The first will disguise itself as urgency. Someone will call with a crisis that demands your immediate response. They'll make it sound like life or death, like you're heartless if you don't drop everything and dive into their drama. But remember what Jesus said in John 7-6, "My time is not yet come." Just because someone else is panicking doesn't mean you need to abandon your post. The second test will come as flattery. You'll hear words like, "You're the only one who understands me," or "I need your wisdom about this situation." Your ego will want to puff up, to prove that your silence hasn't made you cold or uncaring. But Proverbs 27-14 warns us that he that blesseth his friend with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, it shall be counted a curse to him. Sometimes our need to help becomes a hindrance to what God is trying to do. The third test will be the most subtle. It will come through your own thoughts. You'll begin to question whether the silence was real, whether Wednesday actually mattered, whether you're just being overly spiritual about something ordinary. The enemy will whisper, "Nothing's different. You wasted a day for nothing." But that voice is lying, and deep in your spirit, you know it. Because something did change on Wednesday. You can feel it in the way time seems to move differently around you now. You can sense it in the way your prayers feel heavier, more substantial. You can see it in the way circumstances that used to agitate you now seem manageable, even insignificant. This is what Daniel experienced after his 21 days of fasting and prayer. The angel told him in Daniel 10:12, "From the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard." Your Wednesday silence was heard, chosen one. And now heaven is moving on your behalf. But here's the critical question that will determine whether you step into this new authority or fall back into old patterns. What will you do with the power that silence has given you? Now listen carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to reveal will determine whether you recognize your breakthrough when it arrives or watch it pass you by like a stranger in the night. After Wednesday's silence, heaven opens what I call the 3-day window. Not 3 random days, but 3 prophetically charged moments that will test everything you think you know about God's timing. Most believers stumble through these days completely unaware, wondering why their prayers feel different, why their dreams seem more vivid, why strangers look at them twice. But you won't be caught sleeping, because I'm about to give you the battle plan that separates the chosen from the confused. Day 1, Thursday, the echo. Thursday morning, you'll wake up and something will feel amplified. Every conversation you avoided on Wednesday will suddenly roar back to life like thunder rolling across a canyon. The phone calls you didn't take, the texts you didn't answer, the explanations you didn't give. They won't just be memories anymore. They'll be echoes with weight, substance, power. Picture this. You throw a stone into still water. The ripples don't just fade, they carry the stone's message to every shore. Thursday is when the ripples of your Wednesday silence reach the edges of your world and come racing back with supernatural force. Your family will call with unusual urgency. "We need to talk." Your closest friend will text with mysterious concern. "Are you okay? You seemed distant yesterday." Your co-workers will probe with subtle questions. "You were quiet in the meeting. Everything all right? Do you hear what's happening?" The enemy is using their voices to test whether your resolve has weakened, whether your Wednesday conviction has cracked, whether you'll cave under the pressure of appearing rude, distant, or uncaring. But here's what they don't understand, and here's what you must remember. God is listening to see if you learned his lesson. Will you explain yourself into spiritual poverty? Will you apologize for obeying heaven? Will you break the seal of silence with words that scatter what God has been gathering? Remember Elijah on Mount Horeb. First came the wind so powerful it shattered rocks, then the earthquake that split the mountain, then the fire that consumed everything in its path. But God's voice? 1 Kings 19:12 tells us it came in a still small voice, not in the drama, not in the noise, in the whisper that only comes after the storm passes. Thursday is your storm, dear one. The echoes will be loud, urgent, demanding, but God's next instruction for your life, it will come in the stillness between the echoes. Don't let Thursday's noise drown out Friday's revelation. Day 2, Friday, the exposure. Friday arrives like sunrise after the longest night. Something shifts in the spiritual atmosphere, and suddenly you can see things that were hidden just 24 hours ago. Motives become crystal clear. Relationships reveal their true nature. Opportunities that were camouflaged by confusion step into the light wearing their real faces. This is what Jesus meant in John 8:32, when he declared, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." But notice he didn't say the truth would make you comfortable. He didn't promise it would be gentle. Truth on Friday can cut like a surgeon's blade, exposing what needs to be removed and revealing what needs to be healed. You'll see that friend who always supports you, actually feeding off your struggles. You'll recognize that family member who just wants to help, systematically undermining your confidence. You'll discover that opportunity you've been chasing was never meant for you. It was a distraction designed to keep you from your real assignment. But Friday's exposure isn't just about what's wrong, it's about what's right finally having room to breathe. The job offer that seemed impossible on Monday will suddenly make perfect sense. The relationship that felt complicated will reveal its simple, beautiful truth. The decision you've been avoiding will present itself with such clarity that hesitation becomes impossible. Here's the crucial point. Friday's revelations only come to those who honored Wednesday's silence and survived Thursday's echoes. If you broke under pressure, if you scattered your energy explaining yourself to people who weren't meant to understand, Friday will feel like any other day. But if you held your ground, if you trusted the silence more than the noise, Friday becomes your reward. The truth that sets you free isn't always the truth you want to hear, but it's always the truth you need to know, and Friday will serve it to you on a silver platter, unfiltered and undeniable. Day 3. Saturday, the invitation. Saturday arrives quietly, almost apologetically, like a messenger who's traveled far to deliver news that will change everything. This is the day when heaven's invitation to your next level appears, but here's where most chosen ones stumble. The invitation won't look like an invitation. It will look like a decision you almost ignore, a conversation you almost avoid, a moment you almost miss because it seems too ordinary, too simple, too small to matter. Maybe it's the elderly neighbor who mentions something that makes your spirit leap. Maybe it's the wrong number that isn't really wrong at all. Maybe it's the book that falls off the shelf at exactly the right angle to show you exactly the page you need to read. Maybe it's the dream that wakes you at 3:17 a.m. with instructions so clear they feel like marching orders. Saturday's invitation always whispers. It never shouts. It arrives disguised as coincidence to test whether your spiritual ears have been tuned by Wednesday's silence, Thursday's echoes, and Friday's exposure. Miss this moment, and you'll circle the mountain again. You'll find yourself back where you started, wondering why your breakthrough felt so close but never quite arrived. You'll spend months, maybe years, waiting for another chance, while the chance you missed becomes the story you tell yourself about God's timing. But past this test, recognize the invitation hiding in the ordinary, and the landscape of your life will change so dramatically that by next Wednesday, you'll barely remember who you used to be. The question burning in the spiritual realm right now is simple. Will you be awake when Saturday whispers your name? Will you recognize heaven's invitation when it arrives wearing work clothes and speaking in a voice that sounds suspiciously like everyday life? Because, dear chosen one, everything depends on what happens next. But here's what's really happening inside your spirit right now, chosen one. And this might be the most important thing you hear all year. There are 2 radio stations broadcasting directly into your heart. Both are powerful, both sound convincing, but only one leads to life. The first station, heaven's frequency, whispers with perfect peace. It speaks in that still, small voice that Elijah heard in 1 Kings 19:12. Not in the earthquake, not in the fire, not in the wind, but in the gentle whisper that cuts through chaos like a sword through silk. When God speaks, dear one, your spirit settles even when your circumstances storm. His voice brings clarity, not confusion, direction, not division. But there's another station, and it's been jamming heaven's signal in your life for weeks now. The enemy has learned to mimic the voice of the Almighty with terrifying precision. He knows that blatant temptation won't work on someone as seasoned in faith as you, so he's gotten sophisticated, deceptive. He speaks through the people you trust most, using their genuine love for you as a Trojan horse for spiritual sabotage. Think about it. When was the last time a stranger derailed your prayer life? When did a random person on the street convince you to abandon your calling? Never. Because strangers don't have access to your heart's frequency. But your daughter does, your best friend does, your pastor does, your spouse of 43 years does. And this Wednesday, the enemy will use every single one of them. You've felt it lately, haven't you? That spiritual static crackling through your prayers. That confusion when you're seeking God's will. You hear one thing in your quiet time with the Lord, but then your sister calls with wisdom that sounds so reasonable, so loving, so concerned for your well-being, and suddenly you're second-guessing what you thought you heard from heaven. Let me tell you something that might shock you. Satan doesn't want to make you sin this Wednesday. He wants to make you doubt, because doubt is far more dangerous than rebellion. A rebellious heart can repent, but a doubting heart stops seeking God altogether. 2 Corinthians 11:14 warns us that Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. But here's what most believers miss. He doesn't just masquerade as an angel, he masquerades as your angel. He studies your spiritual language, your prayer patterns, your deepest longings, and then speaks to you in words that sound like they came from the throne room of God. This is why you feel torn between your intuition and external advice. This is why the more you pray about certain decisions, the more confused you become. This is why that dream you had feels so real, but everyone around you keeps saying you're getting too old for such foolishness. Dear chosen one, can I tell you something that might save your spiritual life? The enemy's favorite weapon against seniors isn't temptation, it's timing. He knows you've built immunity to most sins, but he also knows you're in a season where time feels precious, where you want to see God's promises fulfilled before you graduate to glory. So he creates urgency around the wrong things and delay around the right things. He whispers through your concerned children, "Mom, you're getting older. Maybe it's time to be realistic about these dreams." He speaks through your well-meaning friends. "Honey, God wouldn't ask you to do something this difficult at your age." He broadcasts through your own fears. "You've waited this long. What if you're hearing wrong? What if you step out and fall?" But here's the truth that will set you free. When God spoke to Abraham about leaving his homeland, Abraham was 75 years old. When he promised Sarah a son, she was 90. When he called Moses to deliver Israel, Moses was 80. Your age isn't disqualifying you from God's voice, it's qualifying you for it. The static you're hearing isn't because God's signal is weak, it's because the enemy is desperate. He knows something about your Wednesday that you're just beginning to understand. He knows that if you can stay quiet long enough to hear clearly, if you can resist the urge to process your revelation through other people's filters, something unprecedented is going to break loose in your life. This is spiritual warfare at its most subtle and most dangerous. The devil isn't coming at you with pitchforks and flames. He's coming at you with concerned voices saying, "Are you sure you heard from God? Listen to me carefully." When Jesus was preparing for his greatest moment, the cross that would save humanity, what happened? Peter, his closest friend, his most trusted disciple, tried to talk him out of it. "Never, Lord," Peter declared in Matthew 16:22, "This shall never happen to you." It sounded like love, it felt like protection, but Jesus saw through the disguise and said, "Get behind me, Satan. Your Wednesday moment is coming." And just like with Jesus, the people who love you most will unknowingly become mouthpieces for the very thing trying to stop your destiny. If you've felt this inner static lately, if you've been torn between what you hear in prayer and what you hear from people, drop "Clear my signal, Lord" in the comments right now. I'll agree with you in prayer, because this battle is too important to fight alone. But here's what's going to shock you about this spiritual warfare. The enemy isn't just trying to confuse your Wednesday, he's trying to steal your voice completely. And once you understand why your words have become so dangerous to his kingdom, you'll never speak carelessly again. You think this Wednesday warning is new. You think God just decided to whisper secrets about silence in 2024. Beloved, what's happening to you right now has been echoing through the corridors of eternity for thousands of years. The same pattern, the same test, the same choice between speaking too soon or waiting for heaven's perfect timing. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. There are biblical blueprints for what you're experiencing, and if you miss this pattern, you'll repeat the same mistakes that cost others their destiny. Let's go back to Joseph. 17 years old when God gave him dreams of greatness. 17. Can you imagine the excitement burning in his chest? The overwhelming urge to share what he'd seen. So what did he do? He opened his mouth. He told his brothers. He told his father. And where did it get him? Betrayed by his own blood. Sold into slavery. 13 years of silence in Egypt before his elevation came. Joseph learned the hard way what you're learning right now. Premature revelation leads to prolonged persecution. But here's what will shock you. During those 13 years in Egypt, Scripture records almost nothing about Joseph speaking his dreams again. Nothing about him explaining his calling to Potiphar. Nothing about him sharing his visions with fellow prisoners. Joseph had learned that sacred secrets require sacred silence. They waited. They watched, and when the time came, they moved. Now look at Nehemiah. This man carried a burden for Jerusalem's broken walls for months. Months. He wept, he fasted, he prayed in secret. But notice what he didn't do. He didn't call a committee meeting. He didn't share his burden with his closest friends. He didn't seek validation from his family. Nehemiah 2:12 says it clearly. I had not told anyone what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. Why? Because Nehemiah understood something that could save your life this Wednesday. The enemy has ears in every circle, especially the closest ones. When Nehemiah finally spoke, it wasn't to comfort seekers or casual listeners, it was to builders, people ready to work, not just talk. And what happened? The wall was rebuilt in 52 days. 52 days, a miracle that stunned their enemies and silenced their critics. They waited, they watched, and when the time came, they moved. But let me bring this home to you, dear one. Let me speak to your generation specifically. You who have lived through the cultural earthquakes of the last 70 years. You who watched America change from a nation that prayed in schools to a nation that protests in streets. You who witnessed the moral fabric of this country unravel thread by thread while holding fast to your faith. Do you realize what you've become? You're not just senior citizens collecting Social Security. You're prophetic weapons forged in the furnace of cultural chaos. Your patience through decades of disappointment isn't weakness, it's warfare training. Think about it. You've watched presidents rise and fall. You've seen economic booms and crashes. You've buried spouses, friends, dreams. You've endured seasons when it seemed like God had gone silent, when it felt like evil was winning, when you wondered if your prayers were bouncing off a concrete ceiling. But you stayed. You kept believing. You held the line when others abandoned their posts. You are Nehemiah's generation, and you don't even know it yet. Right now, God is preparing to use your tested faith, your proven endurance, your hard-earned wisdom in ways that will leave this generation speechless. But here's the catch. It requires the same silence that Nehemiah practiced, the same discretion that saved Joseph's second chance. This Wednesday isn't just another day. It's your final examination in the school of sacred silence. Because what God is about to release through your generation will require spiritual warriors who know when to speak and when to seal their lips. You see, dear one, there's something happening in the heavenlies that most people can't perceive. A shifting, a changing of the guard. The torch is being passed from the comfortable to the consecrated, from the casual believers to the covenant keepers. And you who have remained faithful through America's darkest decades, you are being positioned for something extraordinary. But the enemy knows this too. That's why this Wednesday, he's going to send his most trusted agents to your door. Not demons with pitchforks, your own beloved family members, your dearest friends, people who love you but don't understand the weight you carry. They'll want to help you by getting you to talk, to share, to unburden yourself. Don't you, Dara? They waited, they watched, and when the time came, they moved. The pattern is sacred, the timing is divine, and your silence this Wednesday could be the hinge that swings open a door that's been locked for your entire lifetime. Joseph waited 13 years for his vindication. Nehemiah waited months for his moment. How long have you been waiting for yours? How many decades have you been faithful in secret, hoping someone would finally see your value, recognize your calling, acknowledge your sacrifice? What if this Wednesday is your moment? What if everything you've endured, every prayer you've whispered in the dark, every tear you've cried in solitude, has been preparing you for a divine appointment that requires absolute silence to receive? The question that will determine your destiny is this: will you trust the pattern, or will you break the cycle that has destroyed so many before you? Let me tell you about Margaret from Queens. 73 years old, lives alone in a 2-bedroom apartment she's called home for 47 years. Every Tuesday, she takes the same bus to the same grocery store, buys the same brand of tea, and sits on the same park bench feeding pigeons with yesterday's bread. To the world, Margaret is invisible, just another senior citizen shuffling through her routine, unnoticed by the rushing crowds, forgotten by a society that worships youth and speed. But what they don't see, what they could never imagine, is that Margaret carries messages from heaven in her weathered hands. Last Wednesday, she sat next to a broken businessman on that park bench. Without knowing his name, without understanding his crisis, she spoke 7 words that saved his marriage, his business, and his faith. Sometimes the longest way home is straight. He'd been planning to give up everything. Those 7 words from a stranger changed his mind. Margaret doesn't know she's a messenger. She thinks she's just lonely. Here's what will shake you to your core, chosen one. In the next 72 hours, your Margaret is coming. Not in the package you expect. Not wearing the credentials you'd recognize. Not speaking the language your educated mind demands. Your messenger might be the grocery store clerk who says something that stops you cold. The neighbor you've avoided for months, who suddenly appears at your mailbox with words that pierce straight through to your soul. The child on the street who asks you a question so profound it rewrites your understanding of everything. But here's the trap that's caught every chosen one who's ever missed their divine appointment. We're looking for God in sanctuaries when he's walking through subway stations. We're listening for him in pulpits when he's speaking through phone calls from numbers we don't recognize. 1 Samuel 16:7 cuts through our spiritual arrogance like a sword. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. When Samuel went to anoint the next king of Israel, he saw Jesse's sons lined up like a royal portrait. Tall, handsome, impressive, everything a king should look like. But God said no to every single one. The future king was in the fields, forgotten, tending sheep. So insignificant, his own father didn't bother calling him inside. David wasn't chosen because he looked like a king. He was chosen because he carried the heart of one. Your Wednesday messenger won't look like what you think a messenger should look like. They might be wearing a hospital gown instead of holy robes. They might speak broken English instead of perfect theology. They might be drunk, divorced, or struggling with demons you can't see, but their words will carry the frequency of eternity. And here's the part that will either save you or destroy you. If you're talking when they arrive, you'll miss them completely. If your mouth is full of your own worries, your own plans, your own clever observations about life, there won't be room for what heaven is trying to download into your spirit. Think about this for a moment. Every burning bush Moses almost walked past, every angel Abraham nearly missed because they looked like ordinary travelers. Every divine encounter that appeared so mundane, so random, so perfectly disguised that only the spiritually alert could recognize heaven hiding in plain sight. Your breakthrough isn't coming through the people who already know your story. It's coming through the stranger who doesn't know they're carrying your answer. The person who has no idea that the casual comment they're about to make will unlock the door you've been pushing against for years. But here's what breaks my heart, and this should terrify you. 90% of chosen ones miss their messenger because they're too busy being messengers themselves. They're so focused on giving advice, sharing wisdom, explaining their situation, that they never create space to receive what God is trying to give them. Wednesday is different because the veil is thinner, the frequency is higher. The messages are coming through channels that would normally be static, but only if you're tuned in, only if you're listening, only if you understand that sometimes God whispers his loudest truths through the quietest voices. Right now, somewhere in your city, your messenger is going about their ordinary day. They have no idea that the words forming in their heart are meant for you. They don't know that the story they're about to tell, the question they're about to ask, the observation they're about to share, will be the exact key that unlocks what you've been praying for. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul. They won't speak if you're speaking. They won't approach if you're surrounded by the noise of your own conversations. They won't deliver what's meant for you if you're too busy delivering what you think is meant for everyone else. The cosmic alignment happening this Wednesday creates a supernatural delivery system. Messages that have been stuck in the spiritual realm for months, maybe years, suddenly have a clear channel to reach you. But only if the channel is open, only if you're receiving instead of transmitting. Are you ready to stop being the broadcaster and become the receiver? Are you prepared to let Wednesday's silence create space for the most important words you may ever hear? Because your messenger is already on their way. The question is, will you recognize them when they arrive? Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry 3 eternal truths with you into Wednesday and beyond. First, remember that silence is not emptiness, it's expectation. When you choose to guard your words this Wednesday, you're not withdrawing from the world. You're positioning yourself to receive what heaven has been trying to deliver. Your quiet creates the sacred space where divine whispers become clear directions. Second, your messenger is already on their way. They may not look like what you expect, sound like what you're used to, or appear when you think they should, but they carry exactly what your spirit has been hungry for. Stay alert, stay open, stay ready to receive from the most unlikely vessels. Third, this Wednesday isn't just about avoiding conversation, it's about embracing divine appointment. Every moment of silence you maintain creates an opening for God to move in ways that will astound you. Your obedience to this calling isn't just protecting your destiny, it's activating it. But hear me clearly, you are not walking this path alone. Even when the silence feels heavy, even when others don't understand your withdrawal, even when you question whether you heard God correctly, remember this. The same God who spoke the universe into existence is still speaking into your life. He hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't moved on without you. He is orchestrating every detail of Wednesday for your breakthrough. And right here, in this community, you have thousands of brothers and sisters who understand what it means to be chosen, to feel different, to carry assignments that others can't see. We are praying for you. We are believing with you. We are standing in agreement that Wednesday will be a day of divine encounter for every person who hears this message. Let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God has gone to such lengths to prepare this moment for you, aligning cosmic forces, positioning messengers, clearing spiritual channels, Will you trust him enough to step into the silence he's calling you to? Before I release you into your destiny, join me in this prayer. Wherever you are right now, place your hand on your heart and let me speak over your life. Heavenly Father, Creator of all that is seen and unseen, I come before you, now carrying every precious soul who has watched this message. Lord, you see their hearts, you know their struggles, you understand the weight they carry and the hopes they've almost given up on. Father, I pray for supernatural grace over their Wednesday. Give them the strength to choose silence when the world demands noise. Give them the wisdom to recognize their messenger when they appear. Give them the faith to trust your timing even when it doesn't match their expectations. God, surround them with your presence so powerfully that they never doubt they're walking in your will. When others question their choices, remind them that they answer to you alone. When loneliness tries to convince them to break their sacred silence, flood them with the assurance that you are nearer than their next breath. Lord, I pray for divine encounters that exceed their imagination. Open their spiritual eyes to see what you're doing behind the scenes. Tune their spiritual ears to hear your voice above every distraction. Give them hearts that recognize truth, even when it comes through unexpected vessels. Bless their families, even if they don't understand. Protect their relationships, even in the silence. Provide for their needs, especially when they feel most vulnerable. And Father, let this Wednesday become a testimony of your faithfulness that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. In Jesus' mighty name, the name above every name, I speak peace over their spirits, clarity over their minds, and divine appointment over their Wednesday. Let your will be done in their lives. Amen. Now, precious ones, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share what God spoke to your heart today. Are you ready to embrace Wednesday's silence? Do you sense that your messenger is near? Let this community know how we can pray for you specifically. And please, if this message touched your soul, share it with someone who needs to hear it. There's someone in your life right now, a family member, a friend, a co-worker, who's been feeling that same restless knowing, that same divine stirring. They need to know they're not alone. They need to understand that their Wednesday appointment is waiting too. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. This isn't just content, this is a movement of awakening. Every week, we're diving deeper into the mysteries of your calling, exploring the spiritual dynamics that shape your destiny, and building a community where chosen ones can find their tribe. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to pour into you today. Thank you for being brave enough to consider that your Wednesday might hold more than you ever dared to believe. The silence you're about to enter isn't empty, it's expectant, it's pregnant with possibility, it's alive with divine potential. Go in peace, chosen one. Go in power. Go in the unshakable knowledge that your Wednesday is already blessed, your messenger is already coming, and your breakthrough is already on its way. Until we meet again, guard your words, trust your calling, and never forget you are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond doubt, and destined for miracles beyond imagination. Amen.